Ain't no fucking culture wars. It's just a bunch of bigots hating on every marginalized community. That's all the fuck it is.
Mhm.
That's why every time, yes, there is a litany of hypocrisy. It's in our face. It's plain as fucking is. All we got is hypocrisy. We got Herschel Walker talking all this shit, and look what he's doing. We got Madison Cawthorn, look what he's doing. We got Marjorie talking all this shit, look what they're doing. We got Matt Gaetz talking all this shit, look what they're doing. We got Donald Trump talking all this shit, look what they're doing. They're talking all this fucking shit, but look what they're doing, because all they're really saying to you is, we fucking hate other. Anybody we deem as other, anybody that's not us, anybody that's a part of a marginalized community, fuck them. That's all it means. All right. The problem is when we keep trying to take all these like fake pretenses and all these obviously disingenuous ass bullshit they say to us, and then when they act inconsistent, we're like, hey, you don't see how you're being a little inconsistent? And they're like, fuck you. Like, because at the end of the day, they're not. Their one philosophy is fuck you. That's the one philosophy. That's
True.
That's the only politic they practice. They don't give a fuck about none of this shit. Oh, groomers. They don't give a fuck about children. These are people who literally get up and 2 seconds after children have been shot to death at schools, and they're like, my guns. You know what I mean? These people are talking about all this crime and all this bullshit. And then, that's really how they give it up. That's really how they give it up. They don't give a fuck about any of this stuff, right? Do they? Do they care at all? No, they don't. They don't. They're full of shit, because all they really care about is them fucking selves and lying in their pockets. That's the real tea. They don't give a shit about no goddamn children. They don't care what Nicki Klein did or whoever was hanging out with whomever. What?
Or fucking child beauty pageants, or fucking child marriages, or the Catholic fucking Church. You never hear them say shit about that shit. Oh, it's like, oh, this has been institutionalized in Canada. All of a sudden, all these people are being like children, Indigenous kids being raped by the Catholic Church. There's your story. There's your conspiracy. It goes from the highest levels of government all the way down through the church to the kids. You have it. It's in front of you. You don't need to go after Balenciaga, like fucking ads, all that other distractions. Here are the pedos. We know who the pedos are. What are you doing?
Yes, they don't care. They don't give a fuck about none of that. They don't give a damn about none of that shit. None at all. Nothing at all. And that's the problem. Is too often we allow Republicans to play a politics of distraction with us. They distract us with all these things, and we go for it every fucking time. It's literally just political fetch. They're like, oh, let's talk about the crown. Let's talk about this. And they're like, and we're responding to all their bullshit. Fuck them and all their nonsense. Like, when you think about it, when you're really honest, and it's funny, I think about this all the time because I'm on Rising, and they'll be so fucking mad that I'm like not interested in some stupid fucking conspiracy nonsense that they've come up with to discuss. And I'm like, yo, there's like real shit happening on the other side. Like, I couldn't be plugged into this. Like, I'm just hearing about Republican Spider-Man for the first time because I'm busy trying to figure out how to decarcerate. You know what I mean? Because I'm busy trying to decarcerate prisons. People are trying to
Thanks,
get,
Mike.
you know what I mean?
Thanks for teaching us that, Mike.
All kind of serious shit happening on the side. Like, think about it. In the same, there's no fucking reason why there was just a shooting. Like, think about this. You have little hate crimes that just happened. A shooting at a gay club, gay people dead. But yet, the fucking leading narrative that we're discussing in the LGBT community is some fucking groomer nonsense that they fucking, because it's a distraction. That's all the fuck it is. A politic of distraction to focus on the bullshit and the depravity that they want to project onto other fucking people. That's all it is. We need to stop wasting our time engaging in their bullshit nonsense. They don't, and another thing, and another fucking thing to the culture war nonsense. If other people have something they're fighting for and you oppose what they're fighting for, you don't both have a cause. That's not what one group has a cause and you oppose their shit. And you know what's evidence to that? Because again, on the other side, nobody has time to even know all these fucking actors and all this bullshit and stuff, because it's all so much trivial shit. It's just a bunch of other white people talking and complaining and saying the same fucking nonsense and hateful shit on the other side. Whereas other people are trying to like fight for rights and stuff. And then you turn around and you come on this island like,
or exist. Like, trans people, like, I just want to exist, please. Like, that's it. Like, there's no like it's getting in your face. It's fucking in front of you. No, I just want to. I want to be here. Yeah, that's it.
And they're like, why should I have to like respect somebody else? And like, what?
Yeah.
Pronouns.
I don't know how to use pronouns. I haven't used them my entire life. Like, in every interaction I've ever had with another adult ever. How do I have to learn this? It's really complicated to me. It's like, this is a you thing. This is a burden. This is a cross to bear. God damn, that sucks.
That's what gets so frustrating about covering this stuff. It's just all of this is, to me, is so just like, it's normal to just not care about what people want to do with their own lives. Like, to have to explain to an audience why these people are wrong, why they're bigots, like, it feels so like needless, because to me it should be obvious. It should be obvious that, hey, these people are obviously wrong. They're trying to control people's lives. people that just want to be who they are, just let them live their lives. Like to have to explain all of this, and like to have this to be like a running narrative for this to be the thing that the Republicans ran on. Like one of the main pillars they ran on was being what anti-groomer or anti-trans is so insane, so completely insane. And because of that, like it forces us to, at least it feels like it forces us to have to engage with it, because we have to push back on that garbage. Because if we just let it go, then it seems like we're running away from that topic, right? Like it seems like that we are ceding ground to them and their argument when they are wrong, clearly. But to have to explain that they're wrong already now puts the argument on the same level in a way, because we have to explain why they're wrong. It's there's no winning. Like you either ignore it and it expands, or you address it and you treat it like a real argument.
Defense. Like you're right, but it's also the problem is the way we do it. We do it like, and I don't mean we as in us, but on our side of the aisle, right? There's a way that you can say the sky is blue as grass and green and leave it at fucking that, right? Like the only time anybody questions whether or not the sky is blue and the grass is green is if you start trying to have a fucking discussion. Like, let's discuss color and maybe this and blah, blah, blah. And that's what people do. Instead of just calling the shit what it is, and you know what I mean? What it obviously plainly is, people go, okay, well, let's pretend, let's, try to remember, maybe he's saying this and understand it. And they're always trying to look for some fucking good faith basis and some bad faith shit. And that is the problem. And then what happens is you take some nuggets, some bullshit, some wild shit that they were saying, because at the end of the day, the reason the status quo becomes the status quo by being normalized because we hear it so fucking much. You know what I mean? Like it becomes pervasive and it's normal. So at the end of the day, their batshit crazy bigotry is the same thing. They're just constantly rebranding it, right? Like, oh, they ran in this anti-groomer thing. What they ran on was homophobia. They've always been running on homophobia. They're just packaging it differently, right? But if we have these conversations and instead of just simply calling it that, what we do is we go, let's start having deep dives and breakdowns and blah, blah, blah. And maybe this and the other side. And we always trying to other side some bullshit. No. And I don't know why we play that game, because they don't fucking do it with us. Have you ever seen me literally have the stats, the studies, the degrees, the whatever, all the reasons why you say that? Do they humor reality? They won't even humor reality. They won't even humor reality. And we're over here weeding through fucking bullshit, trying to like, oh, maybe. So that's the problem. It's like, yeah, address their bullshit. But address it. Just address it and move on. But instead, what we do is we give them our platforms. You know what I mean? We talk about it. We let it become the thing. We embrace. There's no reason why our side of the world, whatever. Don't before anybody shoot me with their big gun, but the left, liberal, whatever you want to call it. There's no reason this side of the aisle should have embraced culture wars the way that they did, like culture wars and all this different nonsense. There was no fucking culture wars. They were the same old school bigots doing bigoted shit. But instead, by doing that, it automatically paints it as a two-side thing. When that's not what it is.
And by the way, it's so much easier for them if they just say, hey, by the way, CRT basically means that all white people are racist and white babies are racist and it's the most scary thing ever. You don't want CRT in your schools. That's like there's so much more work to do where you push up on the other direction, where you're like, it's like a boulder up a hill. You're like, okay, so that's not true at all. This is not taught in schools. And that's not what this is about. These are actually trying to actually analyze how society works. But it's like, already you've lost it, because the person on the other side is like, I heard this means that there's racist white babies, and this fucking makes me angry, and now I want to go into the school system. I want to stop this shit. I want to make sure that no one ever says that white babies are racist, and everyone is so angry then, and that shit fucking sells.
But imagine if you never got in the weeds. Like, imagine if when critical race theory first came up as a thing they mentioned, rather than instead of a bunch of people who, this is the problem. You have to recognize when you are not the person most qualified to have certain discussions, right? Like, there's certain conversations I don't wade in because I'm not going to be the best advocate for it, because I'm not as informed, but I have a louder voice and they're going to listen to me. And now we done fucked up and muddied up the fucking conversation listening to me. And that's what happened with critical race theory. None of these motherfuckers, journalists, lawyers, any of them, none of them knew what the fuck it was. They don't know it. They didn't study it. They're not familiar with it. But instead of just fucking coming out and saying, actually, I don't need to know what it is, because this is actually just a fake. This is a pretend. This is a straw man argument just to attack black shit. Any books by black people, anything about black stuff. That's why they could have, and they should have come out like that. But instead, what did they do? Come and get in the weeds with them, but no one knows what the fuck they're doing. So now when this big muddy thing that appears like there might have been some legitimacy in people, and now it becomes about this critical race theory, rather than just immediately dismissing a stupid fucking argument. And then we in the weeds. Now we in the weeds.
Well, and they're so good at setting the agenda. I mean, think about the timing of all of this. Like the critical race theory thing came after the George Floyd protests, which is for the first time you have like white suburban people understanding, oh, wow, maybe people of color have a point that the police are violent and they brutalize minority communities. And then CRT drops and they're really good. Like, I feel like we're always the ones who are playing defense and they're always the ones who are playing offense. They're always the ones who are creating the news and we're always the one who are reporting on the news that they say. So there's absolutely something to what you're saying. It's difficult to like let it go because like you have to respond. But how do you get to that point where we're not just on defense and we're playing offense too? That's what's hard for me.
Frame it. You know, I think about this all the time, like as a lawyer, right? Because it's how you frame arguments, how you use language, how you let someone craft a narrative. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who's saying what. If you allow the original person to determine what language you use, you've already fucking lost. And that is the problem. It does always seem like we're playing defense because we are always responding. We're always adopting how we just let them frame the narrative instead of checking this. Like I remember once I was having a debate with a white guy in law school and I was talking about gentrification and he responded to me, and say like he's trying to oppose my argument about gentrification, but he used the words gentrification and I said, hey, you need to say redevelopment. The minute you said gentrification, you done fucked up. You conceded my fucking point. You let me set the framing for how we see it. Once you accepted the bad framing, that's what it is, and that's what we do. Instead of, you can't let them have that fucking narrative. Abandon their narrative. They don't know what to do with it. If you watch Anytime I'm on Rising, I abandon their bullshit. I'm not in the web. You fuck that. Like, you know what I mean? And when the first time I came out Rittenhouse, I'm not gonna have whatever stupid ass conversation y'all are usually accustomed to having about Rittenhouse. Let's talk about a slippery slope on self-defense being, you know what I mean? Like how this will a whole thing they don't understand because they don't fucking understand it. They don't know anything. All they know how to do is frame stupid ass arguments, and we get caught up in it. So
that's a really great point.
And slope is a slippery slope. It's a logical fallacy. So just so
No, that makes like the lawyer response to it is actually, it makes sense because like I cover like the first thing that I saw from you from Rising was the trans segment, and like it was so effective because of the way that you like easily swatted it aside.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So, yeah, no, that's a great point. That's a great point.
Exactly. That's all. That's what it is. Is like you dismiss it, and it works both ways, right? Like, and as a lawyer, if someone has an argument that you can't beat, you can see, you know what I mean, or a smaller argument, instead of making that argument bigger and stronger than what it is, you can see their good argument from the beginning and you fucking swat it away. There's so many times that like, you know what I mean? There's so many times Robbie's had like, there's a segment he does a radar on something. I don't even remember what it was about. He was trying to rehabilitate the DeSantis about something, right? It was like, it actually turned out, it's like this thing that's been going around, that DeSantis actually did this law. It turns out he didn't do it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, yeah, if he didn't do that, I'm not gonna nail him to the cross on that or whatever's valid. Moved on. Now let's talk about all the fucking shit I got about DeSantis, and I moved in now before he knows it, you've lost your steam because you didn't get me. Fine, I don't give a fuck. Concede your point. Now let's talk about all the other shit. You know what I mean? And that's the problem, is we get too overwhelmed with trying to play that game with them. Rewrite the game. Like, why are you? So to me, that's the approach.
That's smart.
Yeah, I dismiss them all the time. I think it's a bad argument. Fuck that argument. You know what I mean? I'm addressing it and move on. Like,